What is up, people? What is up, people? What is up, people? It is your boy MM2K, along with our good friend Project Storm. And man, do we have a special show for you. We almost forgot to hit the live button because we're having such a wonderful conversation behind the scenes, but we got to do this for the people. So we're going to get started. We're going to bring our special guest on. We're going to introduce him shortly. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to the other host of this show, our good friend Project Storm. Storm, what is going on?
Hey, not too much, man. Just had a hard day's work. Now it's time to go ahead and have some fun, y'all. So that's what I'm focused on right now. Look, we have many of you may know by now, we have a guest, and I can't even hold my excitement, and enthusiasm for this one right here. So MM2K, other than that, man, it's a beautiful day.
Well, with no further ado, let's introduce our special guest. We are here with Robbie Bishop of Mantis Games. Robbie is here to talk about Mantis Games, a little bit about his background there, along with news taking the Stadia community by storm. That news is Mantis Games' promotion of their porting services to Stadia. But with no further ado, Mr. Bishop, Robbie, also known as Bloody Games Reviews. Right?
Bloody good reviews.
Bloody good reviews.
Yeah, he always says that.
I keep doing that.
I had to correct him. I had to correct him too.
Hi, everyone.
Robbie said I'm leaving. Hey, Robbie, how are you doing today, my good friend?
I'm doing fine. I've just had a day off of work and spent the time with the kids outside in the good weather, the good Belgian weather.
Oh, is it snowing there today?
Snowing? No. It's sunny outside.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. We're getting, in the middle of April, we're getting a lot of snow up here. We're in the East Coast of the States. So,
us too.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks ago, it was really hot here. And then 2 weeks ago, a little bit later after it, I was getting this reminder from my tire company say like, hey, you have to switch your winter tires to your summer tires. Like, yeah, I should really do that the day after it snowed. And now we're back to sunny, so yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, this is doing a wonder on cars, particularly mine as well. So, hey guys, and ladies and gentlemen, like we said, we are glad that Robbie's here, and we're also glad that he's here, Storm, on his day off. We feel so special. We're gonna talk a lot about Mantis Games and what they're doing, but before we get into all that, let's pay the bills. First and foremost, this is a PNTS Network sponsored show. This is SSC Podcast, where we talk all things Stadia. This show normally airs 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesdays, but today for our special presentation, we are airing at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's every Wednesday. Normally check us out at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Every other week or once a month, we're not sure on the consistency just yet, to stay tuned, but we have another show that normally airs on Thursdays. That's called the Commission Podcast, where we talk all things gaming. That show airs on the MM2K channel, the MM2K videos channel on YouTube. That airs 8 p.m. On Thursdays. We're not doing one this week. We might do one next week. We got a special guest lined up, so stay tuned for that one. It's also going to be available on audio soon, so definitely check out that and go to pntsnetwork.com for more information on that show. Saturdays, we have a show called the SML Podcast. That show was also hosted by Project Storm and myself. We air that every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, either on this channel or Project Storm's channel. You need to be subscribed here and there so you don't miss a single episode of that. We also have another show that's on hiatus. It is called Yang Meets Yang of Gaming, hosted by Project Storm. Again, he's the host of everything, damn it. Project Storm, Snow Bunny Gaming, and the homie Road Rush. That show is on hiatus, but it normally airs Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But Storm, you're working on another show that you have another co-host with. You want to talk about that show a little bit?
I want to tell people right now, if you know the Stadia Revolution, hey,
yes,
we came together. We like some months ago, we came up with the idea of linking up together. We have done several podcasts and all that before. So some people in the chat was like, hey man, you guys should link up and do this more often or whatever. So we came up with the idea of the Revolutionary Storm. That's going to be a rotating podcast that we're going to do, basically a laid back gaming discussion with you all, the viewers and the listeners or whatever. And, just talking about all things cloud, mainly focusing on cloud. But of course, with cloud, we have traditional console gaming, PC gamers, and mobile gaming. Everything's thrown in there. So that's going to be what we're focusing primarily on. I'm very excited about that, y'all. That'll be on Sundays right now. We're aiming for about 11 o'clock to noon, because when YMYOG comes back, then I'm going to do 2 shows on that Sunday. So we're still working out the details, but y'all stay tuned for that one.
Definitely. Shout out to Tommy Bull in the chat with the $2. He says, what's new in the cloud, bros? And we're going to be talking about that, man. We got a hell of a show lined up for you. Shout out to everybody. And if, like Tommy, you want to send something out, because we're going to be deep into this sit down with Robbie. If you want to catch our attention in the middle of all that, please feel free to hit that super chat button. It goes a long way to help out the platform. Things like the SDO Stadia challenge that we're doing with Doc Dark and so much, it's all because of you and your support. All right. With no further ado, let's talk about what we've been playing over the last week. Robbie, you've heard us babble all this time. You're probably sitting like, will these guys ever shut up? So Robbie, we're going to start with you. What have you been playing the last 7 days, my friend?
I've been playing a couple of games for reviews, like the latest DLC of The Outer Worlds.
Okay.
It's like Murder on Eridanos, where we get to play as a detective, and that was pretty fun. And then just a few days ago, I started playing, and I also reviewed Rain on Your Parade. It's the really cool game where you play as a cloud and you just have to mess with people. In my opinion, it's even a better version than the Untitled Goose game.
Oh, whoa, okay.
Well, if you hear me typing, you already know. I'm looking it up right now if you hear me typing. So that's me if you hear pecking on the keyboard.
If anyone here has Game Pass, it's on there for free.
Okay. Is that a Unity? Because we're going to talk about this. I don't want to go too far off a kilter here. But is that a game on Unity, Robbie?
I think so.
Oh, okay. All right. So
it feels like it, but you can never tell for sure.
Oh, okay. We might need to hit them with the hashtag bring it to Stadia. If you think it's better than Title Goose, especially with the history, we won't get into that, the history with Untitled Goose Game and Stadia. But no, that sounds cool, man. Awesome. And we're going to do formal introductions of what you do and everything, Robbie, but something that I think that we didn't cover, in our pre-interview conversations is that you do, like, opposite of what you do for Mantis, you do game reviews. You want to talk about that real quick for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's actually how I started in the gaming business. Just as a side thing, like I had a support role at the European Commission for 10 years, and it's like the kind of job where you sit and wait a lot unless somebody has something to ask you specifically. You just fill in your own time. And to start doing something more productive than just sitting there and watching anime, I started reviewing games, so playing the games at home, but the writing about them was during office hours and also like interviewing people. And I started specializing on the Belgian games industry at first, doing a lot of interviews with them and finding like what's needed, what's living in this world. And then the owner of the site I was writing for, Disgen Gaming, said like, hey, yeah, it seems like your articles are getting more views than regular. So if you want to be a mainstay and do some reviews for us, that's fine as well. And now I'm one of the 2 main writers for that website.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome.
But again, I have a full-time job and 2 kids at home, so it really translates to I handpick the games I think I will like, and I review those, which gives me a higher than regular review scoring average. But yeah, it's fun, and this way I can keep it fun, because that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. I completely get it, because it's hard, man. Like Project Storm, he plays like 80,000 games a day. My brother chops up 10,000 videos a day. So it can be challenging. But, sometimes when you got a lot of things going on, it's hard to do that. So, yeah, it's better to, and I kind of do the same thing too. It's kind of better to review just the games that that you'll be embedded into. You know what I'm saying? But hey, that's awesome, man. Just all around being able to game and benefiting from it is a great thing. All right, so great stuff. Hey, Storm,
What's up?
Again, we know you've been playing 10,000 games. Just let us know about 2,000 of them. What are the
Just
2,000 games you've been
All
playing
right, so
in the
I'll
last
do
7
you one
days?
even better. I'll give you 2,500 of them, bro.
Okay.
Basically, y'all, I recently I was on that X Cloud yesterday. We talk about cloud
Yeah.
gaming. We're talking about Stadia and all that. I know we have fans of all these cloud services and all that stuff. We're gonna get Robbie's thoughts, maybe some of his basic thoughts on how he feels about the whole thing at some point during the show, maybe, guys. So stay tuned. But I've been playing, hopped on X Cloud. I got the invite yesterday. And I'm a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, so of course I have access to all the games on PC, all the games on Series X where I play. And man, I had a good experience over there. Now, this won't be the show where I'll be giving details on that, but I played a number of games on that yesterday, including Halo 5 and Outriders, and man, what else did I jump on? Dirt 5, and man, so many MLB, the show 21, y'all. I was able to hop on that and play over there. And I also hopped on Stadia as well. I recently played. I was on of course, Ease 8. I was on that. Of course, Destiny 2, jumped on that, PUBG. Man, I've been all over the place. Y'all know me. If I'm not playing about 20 games a week, something's wrong. Y'all might want to check on me. Send me a DM to check on me because I'm sick or something if I'm not playing at least 20 plus games a week. So yeah, man.
Awesome. Well, for me, it's not as impressive as these two guys as usual.
It never will be. It never will be. Because you, sir, you are the type of person that you put the news out there. See, I can't do all the news and everything, So don't feel bad, man, when you and I know people are like, Project Storm, what are you talking about? Be hard on him, man. Get him. No, I can't, because I see what the brother does behind the scenes, y'all. Video after video. I can't keep up with that. That's why I do my gameplay streams.
So we got a lot of great things coming down the pipeline. So because I've been playing Ease 8, and that's a hell of a game. And wow, kudos to Stadia for having that as a pro game. I mean, golly, I love that game. The combat system is great, all that good stuff. But I've finally been wanting to finish Cyberpunk. I'm still early in the game. I've only done 8% on Stadia. Yes, shame on me. And I want to finish the game because I recorded some footage the other day on my new capture card, hashtag MM2K 3.5. I'm coming for Storm, but I recorded some footage and I put it out there and I played it back on my phone and I said, golly, this capture card looks good. But there's some things I got to tweak. So yeah, I'm gonna do some more footage of that and Ease 8. That's really been it for me. Some Outriders, I'm lying. Outriders, but I've been doing that on PC natively and GFN until we get the fix that we need on Stadia. I talked about that earlier today. We'll talk about that possibly in the after show as well. But with that said, Storm, you want to shout out the chat real quick before we go and start interrogating Rob?
Most definitely. This time we'll go from the top to the bottom. Last time it was bottom to the top. So we got Four Scars Gaming. If you don't know who that is, y'all, just
John
subscribe.
in the house.
Just trust me. Just subscribe to the channel. Four Scars Gaming doing big things out here, y'all. And
absolutely,
shall we say Stadia 100 people? Stadia 100, y'all. I just had to throw that in there when I see Four Scars and all of you out here, especially you who understand now what Stadia 100 is all about, which is really a campaign for all of us gamers, all of us content creators and all that stuff. I had to put it out there. If you want to know more about that, definitely reach out to us here in the chat or on Twitter or whatever you need to do. Mainly on Twitter. You can hit me or MM2K Stadia Dosage News right here. Hit us up on Twitter and we can definitely help you with all that, clarification if you still need it. We got Freddie Freddo in the building, who was also hanging out with me yesterday doing the xCloud stream. Ron Slusher's in the house, y'all, showing up every week. He's in attendance, man. I'm gonna have to give out attendance awards or something like that. Tommy Bull is in the building saying, what's up, bro? And then bros. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you, Tommy, for stopping by. Who else? 22 was in the house today, y'all. Shout out. Unitrix is here. We got Rucker. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, but I'm gonna say Rucker. That's for sure. Thanks for stopping through. Charles Arden is in the building as always.
Charles.
We got Rachel Rod.
Sneaky
with the
Ray.
eyeballs over the fence. I'm telling you right now, y'all, when Ray Sherrod shows up, You might
Hide
want to
your kids, hide your wife.
hide everything. You know what I'm saying? Because Ray is out here with 1,500 plus followers on Twitter, man. I remember when Ray was just starting. That dude right there, I can go on and on and on, but I'm not going to do it right now, man. I'm not going to make him blush or anything right now, man. Ray Sherrod, that's the bro. He's doing big things out there, y'all. Subscribe to that channel because on YouTube, the brother, he deserves more of them subs, y'all, just like I do and everybody else in here who produce content. We got, who else? We got, let me go down here. Of course, Bloody Good Reviews. Y'all need to check that out. I dropped the link last week for you all, but just in case you didn't get that link, we might drop it again a few times. Yeah, we'll drop it a few times during the show or whatever, so y'all can know exactly where to go. I've already been over there, subscribed to the channel, hellified reviews that are done on a consistent basis of various games, y'all. So check that out when you get a chance. But we're going to go ahead and continue MM2K because we have a jam-packed show. And we want to try to stay under an hour in 15 minutes for sure.
We got to respect Robbie's time. So, Robbie, we're going to start with the first question. Are you ready, my friend? Are you ready for your interrogation? All right.
Let's go.
So, Robbie, can you let the listeners know what it is that you actually do for Mantis Games?
Yeah. For Mantis Games specifically, I'm mostly their community manager. So that normally entails that you talk to people about the game that's already out there, that you listen to their voices when they give opinions on stuff that's still in development. And it also involves a lot of marketing roles, like getting people aware that you're working on a game, sending out press releases, sending out review keys, stuff like that. Highlighting community content. That's my favorite part of it. Like sharing reviews and sharing videos from other people is like, yeah, make my job easy. Come on. I'm always envious when I see people managing those really big accounts like Fall Guys or the Among Us accounts, and I think like they just have to press the retweet button like 80% of the time. That's awesome.
All right.
So yeah, that's basically the job I do there.
Okay, cool. Now, before we get too deep into Mantis Games and what is done there in totality, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you first get into gaming?
Rather late, actually. Well, on console gaming at least. Mm-hmm. I'd been begging my parents to buy me games since as long as I can remember, but until I was 12 years old, I couldn't push them for anything more than a handheld. So I had all the Nintendo handhelds, but that was it. Then at the age of 11 or 12, I think, I finally got my dad to crack. Plus, he had a colleague at work that was selling cracked PlayStations. So that was my first console at home, was a pirated PlayStation with just downloaded discs.
Yes, sir.
That's nice.
Yeah, I didn't have much choice, but it was really weird growing up. Like right now, if you see kids, like most all of them are involved with games in some form or other. But when I was playing games, it felt like I had no one to talk to until I was going to high school because no one else had any interest in it.
Or they wouldn't say so out loud. Exactly. So
yeah, I just had one friend who had like some old school consoles like the NES or an Atari and stuff, and we would play there. But that's it.
Yeah. So, what are some of your favorite games to play?
Varies a lot. Normally, I really like to go for like JRPG, something really long and grindy, but being a parent now and having a full-time job doesn't really make that easy.
Exactly.
Same goes for big adventures. Like the end of last year, I made the huge mistake of accepting review code for Valhalla, Assassin's Creed. I was like, but I have this policy that I only start writing a review when I have like 100% beaten a game or pretty much close to it.
Okay.
And if you know that game, then you know that I was in for a ride. So 5 months later, like, hey, here's my review. I know the game's been out a while, but sorry.
Hey, Robbie, hold on, Robbie. Let me stop you real quick. Now, it's not even my turn, y'all, but y'all know how I do on SSC and SML, y'all. Robbie just said that it takes him a long time to review these games. Robbie, I'm interrupting because so many times we're reading reviews right now, and I'm not so sure, and you don't have to go into this or anything, but I'm not so sure all these reviewers are spending as much time. But it's good to hear you say that. It was good to hear you say that.
I'm drop kicking into this. When I was given a Fallout 76 review code, and you know the game. It was an online only thing, and Bethesda doesn't give access to people beforehand. Like
Yeah.
the when you're a reviewer, you'll get access to the game the exact same time when everybody else get access to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you see reviews popping up 3 or 4 hours after release, I raise an eyebrow. It's like that's not a review, that's your opinions, and then some confirmation on your opinions by quickly playing the game for a few hours.
Exactly.
See,
I
now
even got
you all are
flack
hearing
for it.
why you need to go to Bloody Good Reviews. This is why I go
Absolutely.
over there. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? This is why.
But I do have this, like I said, I have this policy of beating a game 100%, and I also keep in mind that most of the people who are reading my reviews, they are not really going to them for like, should I purchase the game or no? They probably already made up their minds. So I try to make it as entertaining as possible, and people are just like, does it reflect my opinions, yes or no? And then hopefully when they share it, then it will reach new people.
Absolutely. I like that take because it's like I would never buy a game except for maybe a couple of situations based off of somebody else's take solely. Like games are interactive, so I feel like if as long as I got an easy pathway to pick them up, I'm going to try to play it on my own. But during those times, Robbie, and tell me if you get this a lot from your audience, there's those times when you play a game, you feel some type of way about something about the game. You go to the internet, and the internet, no one's talking about what you're feeling, but then you go to a place like yours, and they're like, yeah, I didn't particularly like this, or I was overjoyed for this. And you're like, I knew it. I knew I wasn't going crazy. You know what I'm saying? You get that a lot?
Yeah, exactly. I get that a lot. And it's also important to keep in mind that games these days, they don't really launch like on the PlayStation days, the PlayStation 1 days, where like what's on the disc is what you got, and the game was pretty much tried and tested for a couple of months before someone dared to push the let's print the discs button. And right now when the games come out, there's bugs in there, and I really hate shooting down a game knowing that the developers probably wanted to do a better job, but there's a publisher behind them that's rubbing his fingers and they want to get the money in there. So I try to give the developers some slack as well, especially with Cyberpunk 2077. There's a lot of things to be said about that.
Yep.
I'm like, a game will be good eventually as long as the developers keep working on it, and it's not really fair to the developers at one end to start cracking down on a game because there's a bug at launch. But on the other hand, they shouldn't have launched with so many bugs, but that's really not up to them.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all. It's there's suits and higher up people that make those decisions, and it's just sometimes it just leads to not the best situation at launch. But like you said, hopefully they'll keep working on at it and it'll get better. So I guess that answers my next question: how did you get in the industry? But specifically because there's one company that you've been involved with that is like near and dear to my heart. We haven't had this conversation yet, but can you let people know how you got into the industry?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working for the European Commission for like 10 years, and then I started doing the freelance journalisting. And funny enough, one of my old employers, so like not old employers, he was still part of the company that was employing me, but as a freelancer kind of thing, like it's contract work. And they said like, oh, this guy is really active in the gaming industry and growing a following. Maybe he should be starting to work with the other guys in our company who are rolling out the game dev stuff. So I'm working for Kronos, and it's the biggest IT company in Belgium. So most of the jobs they do have nothing to do with games. But some people had the idea to group together all of the side projects that did have something to do with games, and then they thought of me to get involved with some of them. Doing the marketing for the games that we're releasing, but also something that's near and dear to me was the organization of One Up conference, and that was a Belgian gaming expo and conference. And they needed someone with a network so they could reach out to developers, publishers, like, do you want to come to the conference, to have international speakers come over to the conference so there would be an interesting show to listen to. And that was most of the things I was doing the first year there at Kronos Interactive.
Awesome stuff. I love, you know what, the reason why I say one of the companies that you were at that's near and dear to my heart is One Up. One Up is comprised of people formerly of the, not Game Informer, but what was the other magazine that...
Yeah, just to be clear, the One Up I mentioned, it's got nothing to do with the review site.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, all right. So
I was actually one of the people
names.
to say, like, we should be careful with using that name because there's a review site that has the oneup.com
Yeah.
stuff. But then they said, yeah, but
Exactly.
they quit.
Oh, okay.
So it should be okay. And we're going to make it One Up Conference and make it clear that it's not a review site. It's really just an event.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, GMO, because I'm thinking One Up that used to had a compromise of a lot of
Man,
people
you're
from the
telling people
GMR
our
magazine.
age, man. You're telling
Yeah.
people our age, man.
Hey, look, man, they gotta know. We had that conversation off set too. You know, older gamers rule.
Yeah, you know we don't care.
My last question before I turn it back over to my brother Storm, Rob, is how long have you been with the company there? How long have you been with Mantis?
I'm sorry, I was just checking the chat for a second.
Oh no, that's all right. No, I was asking you, how long have you been with Mantis?
Since 2017.
Okay, cool.
And that was when they were still working solely on the VR game.
Journey for Elysium, right? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
All right, and with that, I will turn it over to my good brother Storm, who has some additional questions.
Man, look, now here at SSC, y'all know sometimes I go off script. Now, Robbie just mentioned Journey for Elysium, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't checked that game out, please go and check it out. Look at some gameplay. I saw a video of it and I was just amazed. Like I was stunned by, first of all, like I noticed that you guys, because I was on the website, Robbie. As soon as I found out that you were going to be joining us, I went and did a little bit of research, man. And I know I learned everything from low polygon and like put low polygon usage and stuff like that in these games. So when I saw Journey for Elysium, I noticed that it's a VR game. And the assets used, I know there was a lot of black and white, and that was explained on the website. So people go over there and check it out. And maybe we can, MM2K or Robbie can drop the actual link to the site or wherever, because it's some very informative stuff over there when it comes to the games that you are, affiliated with or that you guys have created. Now, so that right there, Journey for Elysium, strictly VR, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
How long did it take the team to produce that game? Because I like what I saw.
It's actually a difficult question because the first work done on the game wasn't done by Mantis Games.
Okay.
You had the story being worked on by a local storytelling company that like works with brands to tell their story. There was a prototyping company that specifically made the rowing, so the VR physics to row, because those really feel good in the game if you give it a try. I'm really proud of how that turned out. And then slowly a team started forming after we got government funding to start working on the game.
Yep.
And the amount of people working on it varied from time to time. I think real development on the game as we know it right now started, I think, end of 2016, beginning of 2017, maybe. But it went through a lot of variations. At some point, there was combat in the game. There was resource gathering and crafting in it, and it was the first game by a brand new studio, and we had to learn the hard way that scoping is really important if you want to actually get the game out at some point.
Yes. Now let me ask you, Robbie. Right? Let me ask you, if I not to cut you off now.
Yes, sir.
Because now we're living in a pandemic, right? COVID, and all that stuff, man. And we've talked about it here on SSC and other places. Other people in the community have thoughts on how the pandemic could affect games development process. Do you think that would really be like super different? Like how difficult or whatever? How what would you say to sum it up? Like what developers might be going through?
I think there's two things. The first thing is it's really hard, depending on local laws or policies, to work together in the same office at the moment.
Right.
And early on, we decided that it would be better and safer for everyone to work at home. But because we can't really work together as a team in the same building or the same office anymore, we also try to focus more on individual strengths of people, and that's when the services model came into play, because we have some artists who are good at making 3D assets, so they're making assets for Unreal and Unity to sell. We've got a developer programmer who's working on the Stadia porting. We've got a VFX artist working on a lot of cool games, specifically doing the VFX for it. And that's how we handled most of it.
Man,
But
I tell you what.
a lot of companies I've seen that it had a big impact on them, and I can't even begin to think how it works on bigger companies where people have offices across the world. Like I can think, for example, of our fellow Belgian studio Larian that's working on Baldur's Gate 3. They're
Yep.
opening new studios everywhere, and then people having to work from home. I can't imagine the workflow of having to communicate to the person who's going to start working on what you ended with, and they have to start on that role.
Mhm.
How much of a project management nightmare that must be.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were able to share that because we as the gamers sometimes don't know the context of the situation. So I wanted to so we're gonna move right along though. And so basically you mentioned that you all develop games like Journey for Elysium.
Yeah.
But that's not all you do. Can you help
No.
the audience, our viewers or whatever, understand like the various services that you do offer on top of that?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
game
So
development?
I briefly mentioned them just before. Our artists are working on assets, and
Mhm.
it's not just purely making assets for like the Unity and Unreal store for other developers to use, but some of it is a focus on games that we're making ourselves. Like for example, they released a cult pack where there's like a ritual stuff like candles or a skull or a crystal orb that other people can use in their games, but we can use them in ours as well. And so we're trying to be more productive that way. Then we have Philippe. He's specialized in Unreal, and he loves doing virtual effects, VFX, and he's really good at them as well. He worked on some really cool games like Ghost Runner recently and Graven, an upcoming title. And he's really having a ball working on those games. We have Tom, who is really great at game audio, so he's doing all the audio for our games, and he's also trying to like shop around and see which other game developers are in need of doing their music or their sound effects. And then like the programming and the porting to Stadia is something pretty fresh in our service repertoire. But in part to you guys, we're seeing that there is a bigger and bigger demand for it. So we hope to service it.
Got it. Now you just said Larian Studios, man.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with Larian, right?
Mhm.
You're talking about Baldur's Gate that's here on the Stadia platform and
Yeah.
PC at this
And their
point.
Divinity games before, yeah.
Yeah, Divinity. Yeah. So did Philip happen to work on that on Divinity Original Sin?
On the first Divinity Original Sin, he did the VFX for it as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's dope.
That was
That is
before he
dope.
was working on Mantis. I think it's one of his first jobs, actually. The guy also worked on some Lego games
Yeah.
early on, like straight out of school. And it's a topic for a different discussion, but we see a lot of brain drain here in Belgium. We have a really good education for games in Kortrijk. And most of the people who graduate there, they start working in bigger companies offshore, so they don't stay in Belgium. But he had a dream of making his own game that turned out to be Hoverloop, but eventually it didn't turn out to be something popular. But yeah, he worked on Divinity Original Sin, a lot of cool games recently as well.
Man, shout out to Philip and everybody else involved with
Absolutely.
in all those games, man. So now, are there any other companies that you mentioned Ghost Runner? So
Syndicate Ironworks, so the Ghost Runner game that came out, and I'm a really big fan of it. I reviewed it myself as well. And then there's the upcoming Graven. He's working on that one as well.
Nice.
And especially, yeah, like I said, he's a VFX artist, but those are really, really cool. He always loves showing them off on his Twitter account, like show off what he did for them, and I'm a fan.
So now I know somewhere I saw that Nanotel. I was on the website and I noticed Nanotel. You guys, somebody has something to do with that. Could you explain who?
Like I said, the programming and porting to Stadia, that's mostly Tim that's doing this. And Fishing Cactus is also a Belgian company. And they had Epistory first. It's a typing game. And now they recently released Nanotail after being in early access for some time. And both of the games are on Stadia now, and that's because Tim worked on them.
Nice.
I think the porting of Epistory he did all by himself, and in the case of Nanotail, he worked together with Fishing Cactus to bring it to Stadia.
Okay.
And also because Epistory is a finished product, and Nanotail will likely receive some updates along the way still.
Yeah, y'all definitely check that out. Nanotel in the store right now. Hey, Man, I always tell people that I jumped into the typing games. Like there's a game from Mavis Beacon. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about that, but it really taught me how to type, man. It was like these
Yeah.
games, and Nanotel is taking it to another level from what I saw. Shout out to Force Cars Gaming in the chat. He recently did something. Y'all can check that out over on his channel. He definitely gave an overview of Nanotel, so go and check that out, you all. And then we're gonna move right along. So, what projects do you think the team has had the most fun getting involved with? Robbie?
Yeah, I asked the question to everyone, and the answers were different.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just going over this guy like that, I think the one returning title that came back is one of the games we're working on now, and it's Astro Harvest.
Yeah.
It's still to be released. We haven't actually talked about it a lot publicly yet,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to be a VR title with an arcade multiplayer focus where you have to up fruit that's walking around with those cartoony faces, and then you have to shoot at invading aliens with them. It's goofy, it's gimmicky, it looks fun, and it's child friendly and stuff. So I think it might be a fun title for them. And what I always thought was really fun is how they went from Journey for Elysium, which is a black and white with a little bit of gold game, to like let's put in all the colors. It's like we didn't get to use colors for a couple of years. Now we're going to use all of them.
Nice, man. I'm always paying attention to like color palette and all that stuff. MM2K, I'm always constantly nagging him, like, man, do you check out the color palette in the game? You got to notice everything, man. Like,
he's not lying too. He's not making this up.
Yeah, Robbie, that is me, man. So I'm definitely, and so now listening to you explain all this stuff, like I knew you were coming on, but I was like, you don't know somebody's their level of experience and their gifts and everything until you have a conversation, you know. So man, just listening to you talk about some of this stuff is taking me to a whole nother level.
In Journey for Elysium, which was the black and white game, it was really important to use color because everything black and white you won't be able to give any hints. So they chose to have a golden highlight, and then you can use that one standout color or visual throughout the game to guide the player. But you also have to keep a certain balance so it's not too obvious and like pushing them forward. Like, this is the single way forward. Use that.
All right. Well, I appreciate you, man. I'm going to pass it back to MM2K to see what he has for you next, Robbie.
All right, good brother. Great stuff. Now, how did Mantis get into the business of helping others port games to Stadia?
Yeah, so like I said, that was because we worked together with the other Belgian company, Fishing Cactus, and we helped them port their released game already, Epistory. And logically, because a lot of the game is similar to their new game, they also counted on us to help with the Nanotail port. So those are the only two games I can talk about right now that we're working on or that we've worked on. Yeah, and we're hoping to get a lot of new requests and hopefully even branch it out, like grow the service down the line.
I mean, those are solid games. And definitely, I mean, I think that, you know...
Even because I didn't work on it myself on Epistory, but it was one of the first Belgian games I played, and I think at the time of playing it, I didn't even know it was Belgian at first. And it's still one of my top 10 indie games ever. So
awesome.
That's a good coincidence.
Very, very, very solid title. And knowing, see, before when we first interacted on last week's show, when you were in our chat, I didn't know that Mantis Games was involved with Nanotail. And then when I found out afterwards, I said, "Oh yeah, we got to get more ports in their hands." So that's some great stuff. All right,
gladly.
So, if the best way that you can you give us a peer beyond the veil? How has the reception from developers and Google been so far regarding the games that Mantis has ported?
From the developers, I heard from them that it's fun to develop for a new platform. And most of us and most of the developers, they actually like learning new stuff along the way. So this is a fun challenge for them. As far as porting to Stadia goes, there's a lot of back and forth.
Okay.
There's a surprisingly long list of technical requirements, and they really have strict and extensive testing. So every submission, every version that you submit, there's a big chance it will be rejected a couple of times. So you need to be able to pack a punch and to to take a punch, I guess. And
Nice.
I'd always go like, okay, so yeah, back to the drawing board, and let's see if it's accepted by them this time. But it's I don't know, but what's the same for most of the jobs that the people are doing, but we've all come to rely on Googling it really quickly. Like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Let's Google it real quickly. And it's not like you can just go into Google and say like, help me port this to Stadia or enter a query there. So it's all discovering it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and sometimes they'll run into a roadblock, maybe something on Stadia's end.
Okay.
That's keeping them from going on, and then they have to wait for an update. Similarly to how a lot of games are working in Unity, and then there's a new update to Unity, and they update to the latest version, and suddenly something breaks in their game, and Unity goes, "Whoops, sorry." But then you're just waiting for them to fix the problem on their end, or you have to find a workaround yourself. And I guess it's similar for Stadia.
That's very interesting because we see people in the chat. I mean, and I did a video on this earlier, and I know you can't really talk to this because this is outside of what you guys do. Because your focus is Unity. But a lot of people were wondering, like, well, what happened with Outriders? I think that's a completely different kit and caboodle. But it's good to hear that there's a lot of checks and balances that happen. That answers a lot of questions for people that may have been a little bit uneasy about that. So I think that's a good thing to know.
Yeah, if you look at popular games like Cyberpunk, I think when it launched on all platforms, Stadia was the most stable build you could get.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm actually missing this from the days of the Nintendo seal of quality, where every game that was submitted was really hard run by the platform itself. It's like, it has to be quality before we release it. And these days, there's so many things releasing every day that it's even for the platforms impossible to test everything extensively. But yeah, it also results in 10 to 20 games launching every day, and
that's
losing a little bit of the focus there. Like, it's harder for people to discover your game because there's so many new games launching, and some of them might not even be any good in the current state.
Yeah, I'm just so laser focused in on that quality check thing, and I know there's everything doesn't always work the way that we hope it works. So hopefully things do work out with Outriders. But I mean, that's so reassuring to hear that, and I'm glad you brought that up, Robbie.
But on the flip side of things, I'd not underestimate how hard it is to get something on Stadia, because you have to take into account a lot of different user endpoints. Like, are people playing on PC? Are they using their controller on their TV? Are they going to play it on a phone? And all those inputs have to work. Even for a game like Epistory or Nanotale, where you need a keyboard to actually play the game because it's a typing game, once again, there was still basic controller support and phone touchscreen interfaces and stuff that all had to be supported.
Yeah, that's interesting you brought that up, because I think that's going to segue into something I might want to ask you later. So, but there's all those different endpoints and different things that are involved in the Stadia process that enhances the user experience. But for developers, it may create a challenge. And again, like I said, we'll tap into that later on why your services are definitely needed. Right? Would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. My last question before I turn it back to Storm. Right now, your porting focus is solely Unity. Now, does the company plan to expand beyond porting just for Unity down the road? I know you've talked about members that are good with Unreal or something like that. Is this something that you guys are looking into down the road?
Yeah, I think if it's up to Philip, because he's the biggest fan of Unreal that I know, he will definitely explore it.
Yeah.
But right now, the porting is done by Tim alone, and his main program to use is Unity. So we're relying on that, and it will really depend. If there's suddenly a huge influx of new requests coming in, then we'd consider branching out. But at the moment, I think we're going to stick to what we know.
Okay. And is it Philip that works on Unreal?
Yeah, he's the one who's specialized in Unreal.
Hey,
and it's a rare thing, especially in Belgium and especially in the indie games industry, where most people seem to grab Unity by default. So it's always interesting to see why they choose it. And after seeing the Unreal 5 showcase, I think we'll be seeing a lot more Unreal in the future.
Well, I'm going to say something. This is solely my opinion. I'm going to say something somewhat off cuff. Just my opinion. But a lot of people, again, they're focused on. They're like, "What happened to Outriders?" I'm going to say, "Hey, look, if there's a Belgium office of Square Enix, you might want to call Philip. Give Philip a ring, you know." But that's here nor there. I digress, Rob. You ain't got it. You can ignore that. I'm going to pass it back to my brother, Project Storm.
All right. So, Robbie, we're talking about performance, man. Everybody here knows that I'm like the 4K 60 guy. I'm like the 4K 100 FPS, 200 FPS. I have an RTX 3080 PC build and everything. And so that's me, right? I do play at 1080p, 1440p, and all that. Of course, I don't overlook those resolutions, but for me, it's kind of like the evolution of visual fidelity and all that stuff for me, right? So when it comes to Stadia, there's been some heated conversations about whether Stadia should upgrade or not. But what's your take on it? Like as of right now, based on what you know about the capabilities of Stadia, or there's things that you may not be able to share or may not know. But what are your thoughts on whether does Stadia need to upgrade right now, today, 2021?
I can't answer for Stadia because actually that would be a question to ask them. But thinking of it from like a company mindset, I think they're going to need to see an increased popularity for the platform before they're going to start investing in extra hardware. Because they don't have any guarantee that if they're going to throw down millions to upgrade their hardware, that's going to be the single factor that's bringing in more people. I think first they're going to be needing to be on more devices, have a bigger player base, have a bigger library, and only then are they going to look at increasing the hardware. But what I do think with their Pro subscription model, I think it will be likely that maybe at some point they'll start upgrading part of their user base, and that will be the part that's paying the extra dime.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's just speculation, of course. I don't have any goggles.
Right. Yeah, we understand. Yeah, I appreciate you even engaging in the question, man. Like, it's just things that we think about all the time, So when we hear that someone's familiar with Stadia, that of course, some people in here, I'm sure they want to know, hey, how much can Robbie tell us? But we understand that it's limited, and there's things that you just don't know.
On the other hand, they also have to consider their user base. Like, do they have the capability to download 4K 120 frames per second stuff? Like I can't. I'm living in Belgium, and I think it's a pretty civilized and technologically advanced Western country from what I experience. But looking purely at my internet speeds, I saw the internet company hang fiber wire companies at my house like a year and a half ago, but it's not plugged into my house yet. So that's moving slowly, and we still don't have widespread 5G access here. So stuff like that. I think it's and even cloud-based gaming as a whole is still in its baby shoes. It has a lot of evolving to do.
That's very important. Oh, go ahead.
Can I butt in real quick? I'm sorry, Storm. I'll butt in real quick. So that's a great point that you brought up, Robbie. Do you think then that's why, because you hear a lot of people complain about, and again, this is just based off of opinion. We know you're not in the boardrooms at Stadia, so there's only so much you can, inject in. But do you think that's why we're not seeing native 4K and all that other stuff? Is because, again, there's the codecs that are involved, the effort that's involved for one, that has to be justified on that end, and two, you got to look at the end user. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and like you said, it has to be justified. Even just disregarding Stadia and looking at the developer side of things, we're now seeing a lot of games that existed on the previous generation of consoles, like Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. They're now having the advanced versions coming to Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. And you kind of feel that those companies, the publishers especially, who are pushing for these, please push it to 4K, please push it to 60 frames per second, include ray tracing and all that. It's mostly the publisher pushing for that so they can have a marketing point of selling point. Like you have storefronts that are saying these are the games that play better on this latest generation of consoles. But at the same time, you feel like they kind of want to ask money for that because they have to pay their developers to work on those upgrades. It's not like they have to snap their fingers and suddenly the better version is available. You have to check how many people are going to buy the game that didn't buy the game before right now. And oftentimes it's even on games that existed for some time and that have been available at a cheaper rate. So they have to come up with all kinds of wacky stuff to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Clarify it, like to warrant it to their player base.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, so and with cloud gaming being so new, we can kind of, we can expect that, like you mentioned briefly, that it's pretty much just a new platform. Cloud gaming is pretty much in its infancy or whatever. So I think it's safe to just to expect that to get better over the years to come. So we can go ahead and move on and jump into my next question, and pretty much it is so your team has basically been vocal and frank about in basically, in your opinion, like Stadia's need to more vastly expand their portfolio beyond AAA games. I mean, right? Beyond AAA games. Now, why do you think other games beyond AAA games are a great fit for the platform?
Well, it's got a lot to do with how the AAA games are hovering around the same kind of genres all the time. And I agree that they are the exclusives. They're big system sellers. That's the thing you put on the box again alongside a console when you launch it to get people to say, buy this one, not the other one. But at the same time, your players are going to want to expand their gaming and go to lots of unique looking for unique experience, and that's where the indies come in. And from what I'm seeing, there could be a lot. The money they're investing in a single AAA title, they could use to get 100 or more indie games on their platform, and that's something that's better for the players.
Now, I will say this: speaking of indie games, man. Now, I agree. Indie games are very important. Some people think that they're just filler. Some people think this now, Robbie. Some people think that they're just filler games, filler content.
Even those people who think it's filler, it's a valid concern that they say it's filler, but at the same time, filler is also needed. So
yeah, absolutely. And there's developers who work hard and they start out with indie games.
Steak on your plate is going to taste really good, but you're going to put some potatoes and salad next to it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, man.
Yep.
Absolutely. So I get where you're going with that one. Trust me, I do. So moving right along. So what are your plans to help extend, pretty much the olive branch, as MM2K would say, to developers and publishers to get them on board with possibly working with you and supporting the platform?
Yeah. So the main thing I said is developers need to warrant the time they invest into doing stuff like bringing extra fidelity to the games or porting it to new platforms. And at the same time, the smaller indie studios, when their game is already released, they're not really looking into keeping working on the same game and getting it on as many platforms as possible. That's really the business end for them at that point. Their passion may have died a little or something. They want to start working on new games, and that's where a service can come in handily, where they can just say, okay, we've been talking to Stadia ourselves. They want our game on the platform, but we don't really have the resources available to invest in it because we're already knees deep in our new game that we're working on. Can someone else help us do this? And that's one of the angles that we are aiming for.
Got it. Okay.
Cool. All right. I guess I'll take it back for our last set of questions. So we've recently, in regards to your services, and this is gonna, I think, gonna contrast and help underline why what Mantis is doing is so important. Now we've recently heard from Furion Games, creators of Death Carnival, done in an interview by our good friend John Scar. Hopefully John is still in the chat. He did a hell of an interview there. But we heard from them that about the porting process improving and working with Linux specifically. And I'm not a technical head, so it's hard for me to explain. That's why I'm stumbling over myself.
Yeah, me neither.
That said, during a pandemic, Studios may find it difficult to polish, and you've spoken to this, difficult to be able to polish or to even port their titles to the platform for various reasons. So therefore, explain to the listeners and potential clients that could be listening as well, why due to these circumstances you can help and how how your services will benefit them.
Yeah, sadly, getting your game ported to a platform isn't a simple like port to X or something, a button in Unity that does it for you.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said, it involves a lot of back and forth between Google. There's the quality checks that you have to go through. There's extensive tests. So that's something our team at this point is getting better at. It's something we've gone through already, and something that maybe some other companies don't want to do, the paperwork to go through it and to go through all of the motions on the game they've already worked on and considered finished, but now they suddenly have to port it to a new platform. And rather than investing the time in going through this process themselves, we hope that they come to rely on us so that we can help them out with the arduous tasks and let them focus on the stuff they care about.
Exactly. So when you have a situation where the resources are strained thin, you guys can be, and even in a point to where you said earlier, some cases they may already be talking to Google themselves and they're just simply saying, we need help.
Yeah, and it's not to be underestimated how much time is involved in the porting process.
Yeah.
I know, for example, like not from Stadia, but when the Quest launched, there was a lot of demand from Oculus to port VR games to their Quest. But as you may know, it's a standalone headset. It's not as powerful as all of the PC VR stuff that are cabled and your computer is basically running it, not a mobile OS running on a handheld VR set.
Yeah.
But the Quest needed a lot of content. Right now with the Quest 2, they have a really big library, but they used to be at a place where it was really hard to find a good game. And then the company itself, Oculus, and the same thing happened with Stadia, they're pushing developers and they're doing outreach to developers saying like, we want your game on our platform. What do we have to give you to make that possible? And oftentimes they'll pay for the development costs, or it will be Stadia, or it will be the Oculus that's paying the developers to give, but this is only, of course, for games that are already popular, to give them something like, here's an incentive to do it for us. We'll pay you the hours. We'll pay you a flat fee for porting the game. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to, in the case of the Quest, downsize your game so it's playable on it. In the case of Stadia, all the different things you need to keep in mind because it's suddenly cloud saved and stuff. That's tough.
Exactly.
I lost my train of thought there.
No. I get it's going through all those rigors.
Exactly.
For Studio A, it might not be nothing because that's what they're focused on. But for Studio B, that may have a lot of revolving projects because of that increased demand, and nobody wants to say, "Oh, forget it," because they're passing up money that may keep the lights on.
Exactly.
Right? So.
It's also one of the things I see indie publishers focus on. Yeah. So you have a lot of indie-based publishers who are like searching people who have games on PC already, but then they put up a service where they say, we'll publish your game on consoles, but we'll also handle the porting for you. And it's just for the developers, it's like, thank God I don't have to do that.
Yep. Well, Rob, I think
they've been working on that same game for months, if not years. For us, if we get to get our hands on a game like that, it's exciting because it's a new game and we get to make it work on a new platform.
Yep, absolutely. And I think the answer to that, Rob, is yes. What we heard in the Furion Games interview done by our good friend John Scar may be prevalent in a lot of ways, but in culmination with that, so yes, it's worth it. Bring your games over, get them ported to Stadia, but we understand that there may be complexities where you need help. So come on over and talk to our good friends at Mantis Games. So that's great stuff. Final question, Rob, before we turn it over to the after show, and thank you. I just want to let people know that Rob has been so gracious. Robbie's been so gracious. He's going to join us for the after show, and we're going to really interrogate him. Like he may go missing after this interrogation. Though we're really going to ask him some questions because we were having a great discussion before the show went live, and I'm thinking we're going to probably start recording those at some point in time, as long as the guests approve of it. But we're going to try to replicate some of that conversation to the best of our ability to what Robbie can answer live on air. We're going to talk about that in the after show. So you know how it works here. If you are a member and you are part of the Stadia Dosage News member community, just like our good friend Ralph Haley. I see you out there, Ralph. Kudos and thank you and congratulations to you for joining earlier today. As soon as this goes off, it is going to automatically take you to our after show. If you're not, then you're going to miss out on all the interrogation goodness that we got for Robbie. So hit that join button below, become a member today so you don't miss out on a single moment. So now's your opportunity before I ask Robbie the final question, which is, a lot of people are listening because you guys are tearing it up in the Stadia community about you guys porting games over. Then there was the interview that you guys did with Stadia Source. I'm a representative did there. That was a great interview as well, where they talked about, they originally embellished on their thoughts on the whole AK-120 and why, this may not be the ideal time for the platform in you guys' opinion, all that good stuff. So you guys are creating a lot of buzz, a lot of positive buzz for the community, and they're really excited about it. But there may be some people, Robbie, that are listening because they just want to be the next Robbie. They want to be, they want to get into the industry. So anyone trying to break into the industry and do what you do, what are your suggestions?
Okay, yeah. Let me just preface this with something I often repeat. There is no good advice. It just doesn't exist. Everyone who's ever said, like, let me tell you this, always already know that they're half bullshitting you because what they believe is true might not be true. Like, what I think worked for me will 100% not work for someone else. It's not like you can go through the steps and end at the same spot. There's so many tiny decisions, and like 90% aren't even game related to get you where you end up being. So yeah, just take it all with a grain of salt. I can answer this question from 2 points of view if you want, like one for the developers and like making a game. But in that case, I'd be paraphrasing and I'd be pulling like strings out of my ass and saying like, I think this is what's happening, but it's not really true. And then the other part will be like, what do you have to do to end up doing what I do, which is working in games, but not knowing anything about games yourself. Like you can't make them.
Yep.
So for making a games, what I've always heard, so again, this is like the advice I've heard, and I don't know if it's good advice, but I'll share it anyway, is to start small. And this is something I can attest to. Scope early on and test the viability of your games early on. This is me speaking as someone who does marketing. Make prototypes, make vertical slices, make a 6-second GIF, I don't know, but start sharing stuff early on and get player feedback. Because if you're posting stuff and literally no one is excited for it except you, then maybe it's not worth making. I think there's a phrase like this, like kill your darlings. It applies. Yeah.
I heard that.
In the case of Journey for Elysium, for example, the game we ended up releasing was something entirely different than the person who thought of the game as a concept. Eventually, like what he first thought it would be, something totally different than what it ended up being. So for anybody doing indie dev, start small, start making smaller games, think of something unique that you'd like to play, but don't be afraid to ask opinions early on. And this also comes in back to and I hate talking about COVID and all the stuff, but events are so important. I really miss it. And it's like one of those places where a developer can show their games to people, and people will lie to your face. They will say like, yeah, it was fun, because they want to be gentle, but you can actually look over their shoulder and get their real feelings. Like, okay, they were looking behind his waterfall. There wasn't a surprise there, and they're clearly disappointed. I should put something behind the waterfall. Stuff like that. And also respect that time is the most valuable and the most expensive resource you have. So you have to invest it wisely between developing the game and getting the word out. And this is something really difficult for solo developers who have to be their own marketeer at the same time as making the game. Because talking about the game is what's needed, but it will also slow down the development process. So there's a tough balance to do there. And something that's maybe changed recently, I don't know, I don't have the insights into it, is that you'd have to understand early on that it's not easy to make a full-time living out of making the game of your dreams. A lot of people will have to start working at a bigger AAA studio and get some experience there at the same time as earning a buck so you can fund your own project. Here in Belgium, we have government funding that helps a little bit, or you can do crowdsourcing or a Kickstarter if you really think you have a cool concept. But most of the time, you're going to have to get like a loan and pay yourself a paycheck every month because you have to live, you have to eat, you have to have a roof over your head. And it's a really big investment. So before taking that jump, you need to have all of your things in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, that being said, and again, all of the formers like, this is what I think it is, but don't take my word as gospel. Doing what I do right now, doing the social media and being a community manager, I never applied for this job. This is not what I was aiming to do. I had a kid dream to be a full-time reviewer. As you may all know, that's not something a lot of people can do right now. I think there's maybe a handful of people getting a paycheck every month for doing nothing but reviews.
Yep.
So it's still a hobby for me, but doing that and getting into the community and especially doing interviews, like talking to the people that matter, it grows your network. And that's the most important part of anything, basically, is get to know a lot of people who can help you, be genuine, be kind to them, appreciate what they do for you and do things back for them. And that will get you a long way. In my case, it ended up getting me doing the organization for One Up Conference, so the local event we're organizing. And while I was doing that, it turned out like, yeah, this is not a full-time job. What else can you do? Well, I write reviews, so I can do some copywriting or I can send some PR emails. Okay, you can do that. You're also on Twitter all day. Yeah, I'm on Twitter every second of every day. So why not tweet for our games? Do you like to do that? I love to do that. Okay, so you can start doing that. Let's see if it works. But all of this was like, I had zero experience and I still don't think I'm doing the greatest job out there, but I'm doing my best. And I think most people are just throwing darts at the board and hoping they hit the bullseye every time, even the bigger companies.
Yep.
I mean, not everybody has the... I'm Square Enix, and I'm going to talk about Final Fantasy. Of course, you're going to have millions of people already excited as soon as you pronounce the final.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm glad you're going into this because the after show is gonna be an easy one, y'all.
This is like an easy one. Yeah, this is like like our good Rock says, a master class. I'm enjoying this. Hey, great stuff. Thank you, Rob. And that's we're gonna close off there. We want to give a special thanks to our good friend Robbie Bishop for joining us, also known as, let me see, am I going to get this right? Bloody Good Reviews. Did I get that right?
That's right.
All right, Bloody Good Reviews. You know, I'm always mixing stuff up, but
definitely check them out. This is a normal occurrence.
I was calling Storm Project Steam for a while until he threatened me.
Yeah,
so call me Project Steam one more time. With that said, thank you everybody for joining us. This was a great interview. I told you guys it was going to be fire stuff. You guys were going to get a lot of insight, and we want to thank Robbie. Anytime you want to come back and just be a guest on the show or just shoot the breeze, whatever the case, man, you're more than welcome, my good friend.
Yeah, sure. It was a blast.
Awesome. One last thing before we close out and move over, because I don't want to overlap. I know there's a show that just started at 3, I think, with our good friend Ray and Rock. But for those of you that are members that just joined, shout out to G Million, Christian Woods in the house. Thank you for becoming members. Now, here's the deal. Normally, you have to be a prescription or higher member to get to the after show, but we're not going to pee on anybody's parade today. We ain't going to piss on anybody's cornflakes. All members will be able to see this after show that we're about to do. So here's your final chance. Join right now and become a member and join me, Storm, and Robbie as we talk more about gaming and the after show. With that said, we're going to start with Robbie. Robbie, again, let everybody know where they can find you and your content if they're interested.
Yeah, basically on every social platform, just search for Bloody Good Reviews and you'll find me.
Awesome stuff. Project Storm, where can the good people find you?
And in case you don't know, you can find me right here on YouTube, Project Storm. It's easier if you type in Project Storm 4K because that's
Yeah.
pretty much primarily what I make now is 4K content. It's just the way I like to do it. It looks better on YouTube and everything to me, so that's why I do it, y'all. And just to show people how these cloud platforms and native platforms run these games at those resolutions or whatever, right? So you can find me here on YouTube. You can also find me on Twitter at the Nephophiliac, which means someone who loves cloud. So follow me over there. I always follow back, and I always subscribe back as well.
All right. Awesome stuff. And of course, you can find me, MM2K, here on the Stadia Dosage platform, doing SDO dailies or whatever the heck I may feel like doing. Also, you can catch me on my own individual YouTube channel, MM2K videos here, where we air the commission. And I'll be doing some Outriders PC game, do some other gameplays. I don't just play Stadia, I play other stuff too. So definitely, if you're interested in other platforms, check me out there. With that said, thank you all. We're closing out now. Come on over to the after party. It's going to be lit. I got a good feeling. Until next time, you all have a wonderful Clive and Lyndon, you're late. No, have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.
Peace, y'all.
See y'all.